Welcome to True Crime Fusion, where we delve into the most shocking and complex crimes. Today, we uncover the tragic and disturbing case of Mary Peterson, a devoted wife and mother whose jealousy and betrayal turned deadly. This story begins in Fairmont, Georgia, in the summer of 2016, with a family that seemed to have it all. Mary Peterson, 37, worked as a nurse at Fairmont Regional Hospital. She was married to Greg Peterson, 41, a charming and well-liked construction manager. Together, they lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood with Mary's daughter from a previous relationship, 17-year-old Lily Carson. Neighbors often saw Mary tending to her garden, Greg grilling in the backyard, and Lily playing with their golden retriever, Charlie. On the surface, they seemed like the perfect family, but behind closed doors, cracks were forming. Mary had always been fiercely protective of Lily, having raised her alone for much of her childhood. But as Lily blossomed into a confident and beautiful young woman, Mary began to feel an unsettling sense of competition. Lily's youthfulness stood in stark contrast to Mary's growing insecurities, especially in her marriage to Greg. Greg and Lily's relationship, while seemingly harmless at first, began to draw attention. Neighbors noticed how Greg often doted on Lily, complimenting her appearance or helping her with chores while Mary was at work. On one occasion, a neighbor reportedly saw Greg and Lily laughing together in the backyard, their body language unusually close for a stepfather and stepdaughter. Mary's unease turned to suspicion during the summer of 2016. Lily, normally open and talkative with her mother, started to withdraw. She spent more time out of the house, often claiming to be at friends' houses but returning home late. One evening, Mary overheard a hushed conversation between Greg and Lily in the living room. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone was intimate, too intimate. Mary confronted Greg the next morning, her voice trembling with frustration. "Why are you always spending time with her? What's going on between you two?" Greg brushed her off. "You're being ridiculous, Mary. She's my stepdaughter. I'm just trying to help her with school and college stuff." But Mary wasn't convinced. The tension in the household grew, with Mary becoming increasingly suspicious of every interaction between Greg and Lily. On the night of July 12, 2016, everything changed. Mary came home from a grueling double shift to find the house unusually quiet. Greg's car was parked in the driveway, and Lily's bedroom door was closed. As she walked past the door, she heard muffled voices and the sound of quiet laughter. Her chest tightened. She knocked sharply, and the laughter stopped. "What's going on in there?" Mary demanded. "Nothing, Mom," Lily called out. "I'm just watching a movie." But Mary wasn't satisfied. That night, as the rest of the house slept, she snuck into Lily's room and took her phone. What she found shattered her world. Flirtatious text messages between Lily and Greg revealed the unthinkable. Greg had sent messages like, "You're so beautiful. I can't stop thinking about you." Lily's replies were equally incriminating, hinting at a secret relationship. Mary felt a mix of betrayal, rage, and humiliation. She confronted Greg the next morning, throwing the phone at him. "What is this?" she screamed. Greg stammered, searching for an explanation. "She started it, Mary. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Mary's jealousy turned into something darker. Over the next 2 days, she stewed in anger, unable to let go of the images in her mind. Friends later recalled that Mary seemed on edge, muttering about how her family was falling apart. But no one could have predicted the horror that would follow. On July 14, 2016, tensions in the Peterson household reached their peak. Mary had spent the previous 2 days oscillating between tears and rage. Friends at the hospital noticed her unusually quiet demeanor during her shift, but Mary waved off their concern, blaming exhaustion. Inside, she was consumed by the betrayal, her husband's disloyalty, and her daughter's perceived seduction. That evening, Mary returned home early, determined to confront Lily directly. Greg was out of the house, allegedly working late, leaving the two women alone. As Mary stepped into the kitchen, she saw Lily texting on her phone, her face lit by the screen's glow. "Who are you talking to?" Mary snapped. Lily, startled, quickly locked her phone. "Nobody, just Jenna," she said, referring to her best friend. But Mary wasn't buying it. "Don't lie to me," she barked. I know what's going on between you and Greg." Lily's face flushed. "Mom, she began, but Mary cut her off. "Don't you dare call me Mom after what you've done." Mary's voice rose, her words trembling with emotion. "You've been sneaking around behind my back, ruining this family." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but her anger flared. "It's not like that. I didn't do anything you didn't push me into." The comment hit Mary like a slap. "What did you just say?" she demanded, her tone deadly. "You're always so bitter and jealous. Maybe if you weren't so paranoid, none of this would have happened." Lily shouted, storming toward her room. Mary's vision blurred with anger. She followed Lily, grabbing her arm. "Don't you walk away from me," she yelled. In the heat of the moment, she slapped Lily across the face. The blow echoed in the small hallway, leaving them both stunned. "You're insane," Lily whispered, her voice shaking. "No wonder Greg can't stand you." Those words were the final straw. Mary snapped, her jealousy and humiliation boiling over. What followed was a blur of chaos and violence. Grabbing the closest object she could find, a heavy metal candlestick from the mantel, Mary swung it at Lily. The teenager screamed, but Mary's rage was uncontrollable. Blow after blow landed as Lily tried to shield herself, but the fury driving Mary was relentless. When it was over, Lily lay motionless on the carpet, her body battered and bloodied. Mary stared at the scene, the candlestick slipping from her trembling hands. Reality began to sink in, but the weight of her actions left her paralyzed. The following morning, Greg returned home to a chilling silence. He called out for Mary and Lily, but received no response. As he climbed the stairs, he noticed Lily's door ajar. What he found inside sent him reeling. Lily's lifeless body was sprawled on the floor, her face bruised and unrecognizable. Greg stumbled back, his breath coming in gasps. He called 911, his voice frantic. "My stepdaughter, she's dead. Oh my God, she's dead." The Fairmont Police Department arrived minutes later, led by Detective Rachel Harris, a seasoned investigator known for her calm under pressure. The scene they found was gruesome. Blood spatter marked the walls, and the weapon, a blood-stained candlestick, lay discarded nearby. Mary was nowhere to be found. Detective Harris immediately ordered the house to be secured as a crime scene. Forensic teams combed through the room, documenting every detail. The candlestick was bagged as evidence, fingerprints intact. Bloody footprints leading down the hallway suggested Mary's hurried exit. Greg, visibly shaken, was questioned on the spot. He described his relationship with Lily as complicated, but denied any inappropriate behavior. When asked about Mary's whereabouts, he admitted he hadn't seen her since the previous evening. "She's been off lately," Greg said, his voice unsteady. "Paranoid, angry. I didn't think she'd..." He broke off, unable to finish the thought. Detective Harris wasn't convinced of Greg's innocence. Text messages retrieved from Lily's phone painted a disturbing picture of their relationship. Combined with Greg's evasiveness, it made him a person of interest. As news of Lily's death spread, Mary became the primary suspect. Witnesses reported seeing her car speeding out of town late the previous night. An APB was issued, and police tracked her credit card usage to a gas station on the outskirts of Atlanta, nearly 100 miles away. The station clerk remembered Mary. She looked frazzled, he said, kept her head down, didn't say much, just paid for gas and left. Back in Fairmont, neighbors were reeling from the news. "Mary loved Lily," one neighbor said. "I can't imagine her doing this. She was always so protective." But as Detective Harris dug deeper into Mary's life, a pattern of jealousy and insecurity began to emerge. Friends described how Mary often complained about feeling second best in her own home, particularly when it came to Lily and Greg. She used to joke that Lily was Greg's favorite, a co-worker revealed. But lately, it didn't sound like a joke anymore. On July 16, 2016, 2 days after Lily's murder, Mary Peterson was spotted in Tallahassee, Florida. A motel clerk called the authorities after recognizing her from the news. Mary had checked in under a false name, but had used her credit card, leaving a trail. Detective Rachel Harris and her team coordinated with local law enforcement to set up a perimeter around the motel. Just after midnight, officers knocked on her door. Mary, disheveled and visibly exhausted, opened it cautiously. She didn't resist as they placed her in handcuffs. "I didn't mean to," she murmured as they led her away. "I didn't mean to hurt her." Mary was transported back to Fairmont, where she faced intense interrogation. Detective Harris asked the question on everyone's mind: what happened that night? Through tears and anger, Mary confessed. She described her growing resentment toward Lily and Greg, her feelings of betrayal, and the argument that turned deadly. She said things, cruel things, Mary said, trembling. "I just snapped. I didn't mean to kill her." But Mary's confession raised new questions. She insisted that Greg's behavior toward Lily had driven her to the breaking point. "He ruined everything," she sobbed. "He made her believe she was more than his stepdaughter." Detective Harris decided to dig deeper into Greg's involvement. The evidence against Greg was mounting. Forensic teams had recovered explicit text messages between him and Lily. Witness interviews painted a troubling picture of his inappropriate behavior. One neighbor recalled seeing Greg and Lily walking hand in hand in the park late at night. Another described how Greg's demeanor changed when Mary wasn't around. He became flirtatious and overly attentive toward Lily. Greg was brought in for questioning on July 17th. At first, he denied any wrongdoing. "I was just trying to be a good stepfather," he claimed. But when confronted with the messages, Greg broke down. "I made mistakes," he admitted, his voice shaking, "but I didn't kill her. That was Mary." Greg's partial confession only deepened the complexity of the case. While he hadn't committed the murder, his actions had undeniably contributed to the toxic environment in the Peterson household. Detective Harris now had a clearer picture of the events leading up to the murder. Greg's manipulation and Mary's insecurities had created a volatile situation. With Lily caught in the middle, the trial began in January 2017, drawing widespread attention from both local and national media. Prosecutors painted Mary as a jealous and unstable mother who lashed out in a fit of rage. They presented forensic evidence, including the bloodied candlestick and the text messages between Greg and Lily, to establish the toxic environment that led to the crime. The defense, led by attorney Carla Moreno, argued that Mary had acted under extreme emotional distress. "She was a woman pushed to the edge," Moreno stated. "Greg's actions and Lily's betrayal shattered her world." Greg, now a key witness for the prosecution, took the stand. His testimony was both incriminating and self-serving. While he admitted to an inappropriate relationship with Lily, he shifted much of the blame onto Mary. "She always had a temper," he said. "I never thought it would come to this." The courtroom gasped when explicit details of Greg's relationship with Lily were revealed. Jurors visibly recoiled as text messages and photographs were shown. While Greg faced public condemnation, he was not charged with a crime, as Lily was above the age of consent in Georgia. Mary's testimony was the emotional climax of the trial. She wept as she recounted the events of that night, expressing remorse but also bitterness toward Greg. "I lost control," she admitted, "but he's the one who poisoned this family." On February 10, 2017, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned its verdict. Mary Peterson was found guilty of second-degree murder. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 20 years. The sentencing brought little solace to the Peterson family. Greg moved out of Fairmont soon after the trial, unable to escape the community's judgment. His construction company folded, and his reputation was irreparably damaged. Mary's incarceration marked the end of a tragic chapter, but the emotional scars remained. In her first interview from prison, Mary reflected on the events that led to her downfall. "I failed as a mother, as a wife," she said, "but if Greg hadn't betrayed me, none of this would have happened." The murder of Lily Carson left a lasting impact on the community of Fairmont. Lily's friends organized a vigil in her memory, where dozens of teenagers gathered to share stories and release lanterns into the night sky. "She didn't deserve this," one friend said through tears. "She had so much life ahead of her." Detective Rachel Harris, reflecting on the case, described it as one of the most emotionally challenging of her career. "There were no winners here," she said. "It was a family torn apart by lies, jealousy, and betrayal. The Peterson home was eventually sold, its history too dark for anyone in Fairmont to bear. The case became a cautionary tale, a reminder of how unchecked emotions and secrets can lead to unimaginable tragedy.